Howdy, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Preparedness Podcast. My name is Rob Hannes. I'm the host and founder of the show. You can reach us and find us online at thepreparednesspodcast.com, or you can email me directly at rob@prepcast.info. Today on the podcast, we're going to be covering three things that you should be preparing for right now. We have a lot of things happening in the world right now, and it looks like several things are accelerating, and we have a very high potential for some things to happen. And if you're not preparing for them, then you definitely should. And these three things are EMP from North Korea specifically, an economic collapse, and the riots and looting and crime that would be associated with either of these events should they happen. A few months ago, when I did the podcast on EMP and even put out the Surviving EMP book, which, by the way, is available on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com, search for Preparedness Podcast, and you'll find it. Also, while I'm talking about this, I've had a bunch of people ask if the book was available on PDF, and it is now. I have an account with a website called eJunkie. It's kind of a weird name, but what they do is they allow people to sell PDFs. So for the same price of $3.99, you can now get the book in PDF form. And if you go to thepreparednesspodcast.com, quite honestly, you can't miss it. There's a couple images of the book. One's on the left sidebar, and one I've got a sticky post that basically highlights that the PDF is available. But when I put this out, I put it out as a way to archive the information that I had just done on the podcast. I did some research, did a lot of testing, and basically, websites come and go and information ebbs and flows, but I wanted to archive the information, so that's why I created the book. I didn't honestly think that just a few months down the road, we would actually be facing a real EMP threat. Now, the problem that we have is we don't know whether or not this threat is real or if it's just hyped up. North Korea has a history of saber rattling, which kind of basically the way it goes is they want some money, they make some threats, we throw money at them, and they quiet down. However, there's been a significant change since this happened last time, and that is the dear leader has died. He is no longer in charge. His son is in charge, who is much younger, and it is unknown as to how he looks at the world. Is he looking to make a name for himself? Is he looking to take down the great evil Satan? Who knows? But the way it looks right now is we have, on one hand, our government saying, we don't really see much of a military asset increase in North Korea. But on the other hand, they are sending tons of our military assets into the area. They're setting up anti-missile batteries in Guam. They're sending, tons of ships out to sea in the area and getting them out of port. So it looks like this is a very real, credible threat. At least the government is thinking so, to a point where they're doing everything they can to basically put the United States into a protective posture, which to me says a lot. It's more of a look what they do, not listen to what they say. And I think when we do that, we're seeing that the threat is real and it's credible. And I think we'd be foolish to take it any other way, because EMP is such an asymmetrical warfare tactic that once it happens, it's a completely different change. It's the other side of EMP is vastly different than it was just before the EMP pulse happened. And this is why I think you and I need to consider and prepare. Look at our preparedness plans. If you don't have a contingency for this in your plan, you need to make one. Okay, so just as a review, and there's more information in the book, on the website, and in the podcast. If you go to the website and search for EMP, or on the left sidebar, you'll see a bunch of categories. One of them is EMP. If you click on it, the website will return a set of results that have all to do with EMP. So there's plenty of information there. But just to quickly recap, EMP stands for electromagnetic pulse. It is the byproduct of a nuclear detonation. Now, EMP can happen naturally as well, but the odds of it happening are so slim that we don't even really worry about it. It happens when a nuclear device, a nuclear weapon, is detonated high in the atmosphere. And I think it's like 25 or 35 miles at a minimum. It has to be relatively high up, preferably, a couple hundred, maybe 300 miles high. When the nuclear device explodes, it detonates in the atmosphere, there is a large burst of gamma radiation. This gamma radiation strips electrons from the surrounding air. When these electrons move basically in a downward motion towards the Earth in this rapid manner, this creates the electromagnetic pulse. There are three components to the pulse. The first one is the most destructive, and that is what basically fries electronics. The second one is a lot like lightning, and the third one is the pulse that takes out the power grid. So it's a very real, very dangerous sort of side effect to the nuclear weapons. I mean, a nuclear weapon is dangerous in itself. However, used in this manner, say, for example, 300 miles above Kansas or Nebraska, that's high enough to basically blanket the entire United States with a single EMP, and it will take out the power grid, it will take out electronics, and will plunge this country into darkness for a very, very long time. And the reason it is one, the electronics are fried, but two, all the big transformers that have been melted because of that third pulse, we don't make them here in this country. It takes years to order and get them delivered. I mean, these things are the size of a house and weigh about as much as a neighborhood does. So it takes a very long period of time to get them. There's a lot of resources involved. It's not something that can be done very quickly. This is why EMP is such a threat, because it takes a relatively simple nuke, and simple is a relativistic term because you still need to build the nuke. However, that's possible. Several countries can do it. And all you have to do is take this very simple nuclear device and launch it in the atmosphere, and pop, you've basically taken out a country. Now, I've taken the time to explain how and why, because you need to know this, because you need to be looking at a communication plan for you and your family, your friends, your MAG team members, your group members, because when EMP happens, you're not going to be able to communicate. Your cell phone, your texting, your internet, your email, your computers, the phone lines, all this goes away. The cell tower, everything is fried. Nothing will work anymore. Now, there may be some that will continue to work. But for example, if your phone doesn't receive enough of an EMP to fry it, chances are the cell towers themselves are going to be fried, because they had enough EMP to fry it. So your phone may work, but you won't really be able to use it to communicate with. That's the issue. Radios, ham radios, FRS, GMRS, CBs, it's all electronic, and all of that will most likely fry as well. Yes, you can protect these devices. You have to do it before EMP hits. It's not really something you can repair afterwards. You need to protect it first. And again, you'll find that information in the book and on the website and in the podcasts. And you know what? I actually have a few videos of the testing I did on YouTube if you're interested in seeing how I tested it and why I say the things I do as far as what works and what doesn't work. So you need to be getting with your people, the people that you need to have around you to survive. Because remember, no more fuel and food and no more trips to Walmart. All this stuff stops. There is no more delivery. What you have is all you have. So in addition to the basic preps of food, water, fuel, beans, bullets, Band-Aids, and stuff like that, you need to make sure that you have a plan, that you and your family and you and your group members know where you're going to rally, because you're not going to be able to text anybody or call them up and say, hey, let's meet over at such and such house. You're not going to be able to do it. You need to have a plan of who's going where, how long you're going to wait. For example, let's say that your brother Bob's house is the centralized location for everybody that you're talking with, and say, okay, look, if EMP happens, and you're going to know it, because not only will we lose power, but the radio stations will be off the air. Your car may or may not start. And a lot of your electronic devices are fried. They won't turn on. Even if they run on battery power, they're not going to turn on. So when you know it's an EMP and you can't get a hold of anybody, this is the plan. Well, the plan is for everybody to rally at Uncle Bob's house. And Uncle Bob and whoever shows up there is going to wait a specific amount of time to allow everybody a chance to get there. So let's say Aunt Susie works in the city 20 miles away, and it's going to take her 10 hours of walking at 2 miles an hour to get to Uncle Bob's place from her work. You should probably double that, because she may not be able to take a straight line distance. There could be areas that she needs to avoid. She may have to duck and cover or hide from criminal elements out there. You don't know. So you say, okay, it'll take 20 hours, or let's just say a day for Aunt Susie to go from work to Uncle Bob's house. And if she is the longest person, the longest period of time that somebody has to go to get to Uncle Bob's house, then that's where you should draw your limits. It's like, okay, we're going to wait 48 hours, which should be plenty of time for everybody to get to Uncle Bob's house. After 48 hours, we're going to go to rally point B, and that is going to be one stop on the way out of town. It could be a couple miles. It could be a cave. It could be, who knows, whatever works for you. You need to say, okay, we're going to rally point A. We're going to wait 48 hours. Then we're all going to go to rally point B. So if Aunt Susie, doesn't make it to Bob's house within 48 hours, then she knows that she should probably redirect to rally point B. Now, if somebody shows up, let's say at the 46th hour or the 50th hour, some right around there, and nobody's at Uncle Bob's house, well, how does that person know whether people just went on a recon mission, or went to go scavenge some food or water and they're going to come back, or if they've already left? Well, you need to come up with some manner of signaling so that the people that come behind you know that you have moved on to the next rally point. Now, of course, if everybody shows up, you don't need to leave a signal, but you need to make sure everybody understands what that signal is. So when they go to Uncle Bob's house and they see the signal, they know everybody here has moved on to the next rally point, and there's no confusion on that. A couple things I forgot to mention about rally points that I want to make sure I hit. They need to be safe areas. I mean, you don't want to just meet at the McDonald's. That could work if you had people that were relatively close together, because when an EMP first happens, people will just assume it's a power outage. Nobody's going to be freaking out right away. So you may have a few hours to actually meet in an urban area. If that works for you, sure, go ahead and plan for that. But you're going to be holding up at a house, and then preferably somebody else's house, or maybe a really good and secure camping spot. You want to make sure that every place you go, you can defend yourself if you have to, but at least you want to be able to relax somewhat, not completely, because of the situation, you're not going to be able to do that, but you don't want to be on 100% alert 100% of the time because you'll just burn out. So the other aspect is if people are at Uncle Bob's house and it's only been 18 hours or 24 hours, but Uncle Bob happens to live in an area that's right next to a bad area where there's a lot of crime and violence, and it's starting to spill over into his neighborhood, well, then the people at Uncle Bob's house need to leave. That's why that signal is there. So even if you show up, at the 28th hour and the signal is there, then you know that, okay, this area has become so dangerous that they had to leave, and I need to be on my toes because I am now in this area that was too dangerous for them to stay at. So get your group together. The heads of state, the heads of the family, whatever it is, and make the decision on where you're going to meet up, what your rally points are going to be. And then you need to make some plan to get out of the urban area. Now, I realize that obviously the best answer is to be living out of the urban area. And if you are, congratulations to you. That's awesome. A lot of us are stuck here because we have jobs and whatever the case may be, we have to take care of parents or family or whatever. It's just how it is. So you need to be realistic and just know that, okay, we're going to have to get out as soon as possible, because when there is no food and fuel and resources available to a highly dense population area, you have a lot of crime and rioting and violence, and you don't want to be a part of that. You want to get out before you can. So the shortest amount of time that you have to wait for people to show up is what needs to work. But you still need to give people time. So you need to work that out with your family, your group, your members. You also want to write all of this down. You want to have the plan written down so everybody knows what it is. You want to have your contact information for every member, phone numbers, email. If your phone is text capable, they can get email and text on their phone. Their work addresses, the home addresses, when they're at work, if they are different locations in different parts of the week, you need to have that too, so you can know how long it's going to take somebody to go. Let's say, for example, one of your group members, Steve, works at one location on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and another location that's 10 miles farther on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Well, you're going to want to know exactly where Steve is going to be coming from, so you need to be able to plan. Okay, it's the balloon went up on Tuesday. We know he's 10 miles farther, so we can add that amount of time to our expectation of when we hope he's going to be able to show up. In addition to contact information for all of your family and members, you should have the address of all your rally points. I would include strip maps, several maps that are different magnification levels so you can tell what the streets are and the surrounding area. Have those for every rally point so people can take a paper map and associate, because they're not going to be able to use GPS, they're not going to be able to use Google Maps or anything on their smartphones. You're going to have to do this all by paper or memory. And sometimes when you're under stress, you forget things, so you want to make sure that it's very clear. Take all this information and print it out, and make sure everybody prints it out, that they have a copy. And I would even go as far to say laminate this information so that it's not easily destroyed by ripping or tearing or fire or water or whatever, so that it's there, you have it, because this is important, critical information. In addition to these sorts of plans, this communication plan, and I call it a communication plan because this is how you're going to communicate. You're going to get back together to meet up. You could call it an anti-communication plan. It's just easier to say communication plan. We know what everybody's going to do. We know where everybody's going to be at some point, and we know how to communicate to each other that I've left this point for the next point. Now, your final rally point needs to be your safe zone. I mean, it must be the point where you're going to wait the longest for all members if everybody hasn't shown up yet. This is someplace that should have the resources that you can hold up for a while. You know, food, water, shelter, defensibility, etc. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, gee, Rob, why do I have to write down all the contact information if I'm not going to be able to call anybody up? Well, quite honestly, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, so if you do, then please send me an email and let me know, because I certainly would love to know. But the point is, you need to be prepared. You don't know what's going to happen, so plan for all foreseeable contingencies. If you need to walk to somebody's house because the last time you talked to them was they sprained their leg and they're having a hard time walking around, and boop, oh, EMP, well, now you know you probably need to go and help them out. You need to be able to communicate. Let's say, for example, now North Korea can't get a missile here to mainland USA. Now, they can get one close enough to touch off an EMP, but let's just say that the intel on this is wrong, and they actually can land a nuke on the West Coast, and instead of an EMP attack, they actually nuke Los Angeles. That would be exceptionally bad for the economy. It would cause extreme panic, and you would still probably be able to call each other. So having that information so you know what to do and stuff is crucial. Now, of course, along with this, you need to be doing your other preps. You need to be looking at those items that you can pack up and take with you quickly. You need to maybe make an itemized list of all the things that you must grab. Maybe make a list of where you're going to get alternate transportation in case your vehicles are the ones that don't start. You need to start looking at all this, because if it happens, you're not going to have a whole lot of time to decide on what you need to do. So you need to do it now while you do have the time. Okay, and that's the first thing I wanted to cover was the EMP. I know we talked about it before, but like I said, who would have thought that we would have so soon been faced with this? So I want to make sure that you're putting all the nuts and bolts together and making sure you're getting prepared as possible, and that comm plan is crucial. You know, I started this podcast. I was so anxious and excited to start the podcast and get right into it that I completely forgot to make some of the announcements of what's going on and stuff. Still working on the preparedness capability checklist. My goal is still to have it available by the end of this month, end of April 2013. Not sure if it's going to make it, because what happened is I found a really excellent editor, and she's going through it and really helping me smooth out grammar and typos, and more importantly, she's making the style consistent. So she's not changing what I've written. She's making it. She's taking what I've written and she's slightly changing and making it read better, which I think is very important. Because I think consistency, I mean, we all enjoy consistency when we read a book. And so I think it's worth the time to let her go through and make the edits. I think it's going to make a really great product. I think you're going to be really excited to see the book. This is unlike any other survival preparedness checklist that you have ever seen. It's absolutely going to help you get prepared. It's going to help tell you whether or not you're prepared. And so look for that soon, hopefully again at the end of this month. Also, at the end of this month, there is a Prepper Expo here in Arizona. It's April 26th, 27th, and 28th at the Scottsdale 101 Shopping Center at Scottsdale Road and Loop 101 Highway. This is an expo that I've been asked to speak at. I'm going to be speaking about EMP. So if you're in the area, or if you live here or are driving through here, you can find out more information by going to prepperfestaz.com. If you go to the website, you'll see a nice web page. It looks like a flyer, and you'll see all the information for Prepperfest AZ. I know the organizer, Tony Tangelos, is hoping that this will be the first of many expos that he can have, I think not only here in the state, but around the country. So looking forward to that. When you're done checking out that site, head over to thepreparednesspodcast.com and consider signing up for the weekly prep tips. This is a weekly feature that we have. They're article length tips that we send out every week. Really good stuff. Got some great feedback on that. While you're there, and if you have some time, consider filling out the listener survey. You'll find that banner also on the front page. This is completely anonymous. You can fill it out, tell us what you think, good or bad, and we won't know who it comes from, but it allows you a way to feedback without having to worry about us knowing who you are. I really like the feedback because it lets me know that what I've been doing is being well received. It's what you people are looking for in a preparedness podcast, and that's why that kind of motivates me to keep doing it. So I really enjoy the feedback that we've been getting. If you're sort of a news junkie and are always looking for different sources of information, one of the things I put out Monday through Friday is a Prepper News Watch of all the articles that I've come across that I think have some relevancy to preppers and preparing. And you'll find these daily posted on the website. This podcast is sponsored in part by Legacy Foods. They have the websites buyemergencyfoods.com and preparewise.com. If you haven't been to preparewise.com, go ahead and check them out. When you're there, click on the product info and go to the best value in food storage page. You're going to find a lot of great information about why Legacy is the best value in food storage. They've got a matrix there that compares their food against other food storage companies, looking at the cost per day, total calories, the shelf life, and even things as far as ingredients, as far as GMO and MSG and artificial flavors. It's a really great page to kind of give you a lot of information about why the food is very high quality. And in addition to being just high quality ingredients, it does taste good. I've had a bunch of the food, and I really like the food. It tastes good. It doesn't taste like camping food. It doesn't taste like food that's been sitting around in a tinfoil for years. It's really good stuff. If you've been listening to the podcast, you've heard me talk about the food. We've done taste tests. You've heard my children talk about the food. They like it, which I think is extremely important because, if your kids don't eat, we've got problems, right? You know what? If you are in the market for a large food storage order, you can customize your order with Legacy, unlike a lot of places. Also, if you call in your order at 888-545-6265 or go to the website and get the number, same number, you can call them. And if you let them know that you heard about them on the Preparedness podcast, you're going to get 5% off your entire order, which, when you're making food purchases, you're making these large purchases, 5% is a good chunk of change. So check them out. That's preparewise.com. Our other sponsor is Flying Eagle Gold. And we've talked about this, and this is going to dovetail into our next topic about preparing for an economic collapse. When you've gotten to a point where you've got your beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, and you're looking to preserve your savings, preserve your wealth, look at what happened in Cyprus. We're getting right into this. This is what I'm going to talk about, but you put your money in a bank and you think it's safe. It's not safe. It is not your money anymore. You're hoping that you'll be able to take it out. And under normal circumstances, you can. But if you own paper money in your house, in your possession, they can't take that from you. However, they can take the value from you. And that's where gold and silver can help defray some of that deterioration of value. Now, I would not recommend dumping everything into gold and silver because we don't know what's going to happen. You need to diversify. I mean, we're preppers. Come on, we don't have just one type of food storage. We don't have just one water filter. We certainly don't have just one gun. You're not going to have one way of preserving the value of what you have. You're going to have tangible goods. You're going to have gold. You're going to have silver. You're going to have some cash on hand. It's all part of the overall preparedness that you need to have. So when you're ready to buy, give Jeff a call at 855 Buy Silver, that's SLVR, or 855-289-7587. Let them know that you heard about them on the Preparedness podcast. And speaking of the economy, Cyprus is still happening. If you're not following, what's happened is Cyprus is in need of a bailout. They are basically a collapsed economy, a collapsed government. They have used fiat currency to the nth degree, and they are at the end of the rope as it goes. And in order to qualify for a bailout from the European Union, the EU, they needed to raise a certain amount of capital. Well, they don't have it. I mean, the government doesn't make anything, so it's not like they can sell anything. They have nothing there. So what they decided to do was to shut down the banks and steal the money from the bank depositors. Not a fee or a levy or a tax. It was just outright theft. Now, I talked a lot about this at the last podcast, so I just want to recap. And you need to understand that when you put money into a bank, you have the same risk, really, as loaning it to the guy next door. He may or may not pay you back. You may or may not get your money back. You need to understand that bankers don't look at your money as being a loan that you make them. They look at it as their money. And if they want to take it, they're going to take it. Some of these depositors in Cyprus are I read one article today, and I'm not sure if it's really hard to believe. Basically, it was saying that the depositors got to keep 32.5% of their deposits. So in other words, they stole 2/3 of your money and let you keep. They let you keep the other third. That was their solution. Well, now that this has happened, we know what the bankers' plan is. They've tipped their hand. We know how it's going to play out. They would not have to do this if we had a sound global economy. They don't want you to think about that, but this is the truth. This is the fact. These are the things that they don't want you to think about. They don't want you to think about how many more people are on food stamps or government assistance. They don't want you to think about what the real unemployment rate is. They don't want you to think about how they have to keep printing or making more bogus fiat money to keep the economy going, to keep the Wall Streeters happy, because the economy itself is in such shambles that that's the only thing they can do to make people happy. They don't want you to see this. They want you to believe that everything's just, hunky-dory and everything's fine, and go back to grazing and don't worry about the man behind the curtain sort of thing. So you have to understand that because this is happening and because Cyprus happened, we now know where they're going to take this. When they need real money, they're going to take it. They're going to steal it from bank depositors. That probably also means they're going to steal it from retirement accounts, 401ks, stocks, whatever. They're going to take it from wherever they can. I mean, they already took all the money out of Social Security. There isn't anything left there. It's all nothing but a big box of IOUs. So you need to understand that this is the new norm. This is the new normalcy. You're not going to be able to rely on bankers or trust the fact that, well, I've got my money in the bank and I'm drawing my 2 or 3% savings. Nope, not happening. I mean, maybe somebody is someplace, but the norm isn't. We've got massive economic problems happening right now, and you need to start structuring. If you haven't already, you need to start structuring yourself to get ready for this. Now, the best way to do that is to have tangible goods, food, water source. Actually, you know what? One of the best things that you can have for an economic collapse is farmland. Owning farmland and working farmland. I don't mean just a field that doesn't do anything, but I mean land that's actually producing food is going to be highly valuable, because it's going to be kind of like a cash cow business, because everybody's going to need food and it's going to be super expensive. Not only will you be able to feed your family if you own a farm and stuff, but you're going to be able to sell that extra food and continue to make money. Now, with government subsidies and price controls and stuff, you may not be able to get rich off it, but at least you're going to be able to provide for yourself, and that is the most important thing. Short of having a farm, you need to look at how you can provide yourself outside of a banking structure. Again, we've talked about preserving your wealth. Gold and silver will help do that. Tangible goods will do that, because if you have a water filter, the value of that water filter is it makes clean water for you. It doesn't matter if you paid $10 for it, $100 or $1,000 for it. The value is that it makes clean water for you, and that value will remain there regardless of what inflation does. This is why everybody says, have tangible goods. So structure yourself. You should be planning for this. You need to plan what happens when the banks go to confiscate funds. And in fact, you should be structuring yourself now so that you only have the bare minimal operating capital in banks. I mean, that may be tough for those of you who have been able to successfully save a lot of money. You're going to have to talk to somebody who's smarter than I am as far as how you're going to be able to store that and keep the government from getting their hands on that. For average people who don't have a lot of savings right now, if you look at the numbers, I think it's like 51% have less than $10,000 in savings. It should be fairly easy for you to take that savings and either store cash away here, take some of it and buy gold and silver, take some buy some tangible goods, some preparedness items and stuff. Get ready, because I think with the Cyprus thing, I've been already saying before that I think we're in the early stages of hyperinflation. Now with the Cyprus thing, I think we're seeing how desperate the bankers are looking at the situation, because even though they're putting on a great face and they're saying, "Oh yes, we have the answers, no problem. You can trust us." No, really, you can. No, I think we know now where this is going to go. So if you've been kind of on the fence and thinking, well, I think I'm going to have some time, I think I'll find out, I'll know when it's time to move and prepare for this sort of thing. Well, now's the time. Now's the time to jump off that fence and get to working. The last thing I want to talk about is related to both of these other topics, and that is the rioting, the looting, the criminal activity, and the violence that are going to accompany either or both an economic collapse and an EMP attack. Now, an EMP attack is going to be kind of easy to see because, well, when people figure out that everything is dead and gone, they're going to start fighting for survival, and that's going to get quite messy. If you haven't read 1 Second After by William Forstchen, I highly recommend you do. It is a fictional account of an EMP attack on the United States. Highly accurate. I've read it 3 times now. I take that back. I've read it twice, and I've listened to the audiobook once. Very good story. I strongly recommend that anybody who wants to understand what exactly we're looking at in the aftermath of an EMP, you should read this book. It's not pretty. It's relatively dark. Not as dark as The Road, but it's still fairly dark because people die. And to be honest, a lot of people are going to die in the aftermath from an EMP attack because the farms can't get food to the stores. There's no more gas. There's no more medicines. It's going to be a nightmare scenario. And so you need to kind of gird yourself for this type of violence. We have the potential to see it not only from the EMP attack, which is almost too much to believe because it's so fantastical of a scenario. But you know what? This could very well happen in a town or neighborhood near you during an economic collapse. There have been several articles written now. One is by Matt Bracken. We talked about that several months ago. Another one just came out. I think it was Natural News. I have it on the Prepper News Watch. It actually had it on 2 days because I thought it was so important. But it talks about what's going to happen when the EBT cards fail. EBT cards are basically like welfare debit cards. Somebody can take these cards and buy food and other stuff with them, and they don't have to pay for them with their own money. It's the government subsidy stuff. It's government assistance. And actually, if you still think of food stamps as being stamps, they don't do that anymore. It's all through these EBT cards. It's all done digitally and electronically, which means that it relies on an infrastructure that is very susceptible to power outages, banking outages, and things like, little things like EMP events. Well, this entitlement mentality for these people who've been on this welfare for so long when these cards don't work anymore, these people, what are they going to do? They're going to be very angry. There's been several articles. If you haven't read them, I strongly recommend that you do. But what they outline is that we're going to be faced with people angry. You could be angry because they lost jobs, because they don't have food, because their money's worth nothing, or because whatever the reason is, they're going to be rioting and looting, and they're going to be on the rampage, so to speak. You need to be ready to handle this. Now, I'm not saying you're going to go out and you're going to face them down. No, but you need to be able to know how to harden your home, know if you need to leave because you're in an area that's most likely to see this sort of activity. You need to prepare. You need to be able to harden your home. You need to make sure you keep your family safe, be able to protect yourself, defend yourself, all that stuff. If you're not thinking about this, you need to. Because, unfortunately, we're looking at a couple situations where we could very well see this. Hopefully not. I certainly hope this doesn't happen. I certainly hope there's some other way out of this economic mess that we're in. Unfortunately, I don't see one, which is why I keep harping on this podcast about, be ready for the economic collapse. Do what you can. Now, I understand that a lot of people, are having a tough time making ends meet. You have to do what you can. If that means you can only squirrel away a couple cans of soup a week, then do it. Whatever it takes, whatever you can do now is going to help you when you need it. So if it's a couple cans of soup, or maybe it's a bag of wheat or rice or something, but do what you can and do it now. Also, not only on a personal level, but if you own a business, like a storefront business, where maybe you have a 7-Eleven or a general store or something like that, you need to be able to switch over to either taking cash, so maybe you have a supply of dollar bills and coinage on hand, so you can take cash and make exact change, or be able to lock up, recognize the signs. When your neighborhood is starting to go to heck in a handbasket, you can close up and seal off your business and cut your losses as much as possible, or at the very least, just get out of there so you don't lose your life. It's not worth it. But you need to look at this from both a personal and a business standpoint, because I think this is where we're headed. I definitely think we're going to see some economic strife. Cyprus has showed us their hands and what they're thinking, and so I think it's in our best interest as preppers to be as prepared as possible. And part of my job is to help you think about these things, and I hope I'm doing that. So until next time, folks, keep preparing, enjoy life, and be safe.